Welcome back. We are going to discuss something that's happened earlier this month, which is the European Union has voted to mandate easily replaceable batteries in portable
Hmm.
devices, and that includes tablets and smartphones. And I have some thoughts on that. Um, the The first thing, and this isn't the first time the European Union has kind of done that. We know that they mandated that USB-C has become the standard for charging devices, and so
Hmm.
Apple's had to acquiesce to that. But I do have some questions. Uh, the uh, the whole like legislation behind this, if you want to read it, it's like 130 pages, which I did not read because that's a lot of reading. Um,
What do you get? Like just a
but
summary then, or
I'm not going to give you a summary. I'll just
well, I meant
because
like what? Did you read one? I assume you just said you didn't read the whole thing.
I don't know. I read an article from PC Mag on it,
Okay.
and so I don't have a ton of detail on it. But the basis of it is by 2027, phone manufacturers are going to have easily replaceable batteries as in user friendly. So use easily. If there's a here, if I can bring up the article, maybe. Of course, I've already got rid of the article.
Yeah, I have a lot of questions myself. I'm interested to hear the specifics on that.
Yeah, I don't have the full specifics of it. Um,
What does it mean to have a easily replaceable battery?
that's an interesting question. So in the article here, it says just for portable batteries, and they put that in quotations, used in devices such as smartphones, tablets, and cameras, consumers must be able to easily remove and replace them.
Hmm.
That's also in quotes, easily remove and replace them.
Wonder if the sentiment behind. I mean, are we going to go back to being able just to snap them back, take off the bat? I mean, water resistance is quoted as the reason for us.
So, and I actually thought about that, and I can debunk that right now.
Hmm.
So, Samsung has a phone right now, and I was looking at that too. Um, something 6 Pro. Let's see if I can bring that up. And it's a Galaxy phone. The X Cover 6 Pro is what it's called.
I've heard of
It's
it.
like so the it's a $600. I believe it's 599 is the MSRP on it. So
Hmm.
it's marketed as Samsung's like rugged phone. So
Hmm.
it's got a LCD screen. It's got a 120 hertz refresh rate on it. Does not have a flagship processor, but it does have a removable battery, and it is IP68
Oh,
rated
wow.
for water resistancy. So
That's nothing to cough at.
So you can indeed have a water resistant phone that does have a removable battery. So Samsung's doing it. Uh, I watched a couple of reviews on the device itself. That they weren't overwhelmingly positive. But that being said, it can happen, and I know that's been a big thing in the past. Is that manufacturers have decided to go against against the removable battery in lieu of a solid state battery, um, so we could have water resistant phones.
Hmm.
And so that just isn't true.
Hmm.
But I do have thoughts. Um, so my first thought is two part. First is this government overreach? Um, So you
Nothing
and I
new for our
are
podcast. Yeah.
so you and I are, politically alike, probably 90% alike, 10% we disagree on
especially
things.
especially when it comes to that topic, government overreach.
So we definitely align when it comes to government overreach. And so I am a big proponent of the market should dictate, um, these types of
Right.
things, not a body, should be dictating. A body with an agenda should be
Hmm.
dictating these kind of things. Now that sounds kind of anti-consumer of me, because I miss the days of being able to pop a battery off my phone and doing a hard reset and putting the battery back in.
Yeah.
Um, and in every device too, you and I know that lithium ion batteries, when used daily, have a shelf life of 2 to 3 years. We know that. And so if you have a device that has, a 5 year lifespan, supposedly, like a Samsung device, for example, right? So like
Hmm.
my Galaxy S23 has 5 years of security updates.
Hmm.
But if I use it every single day, the battery is going to be obsolete within 3 years, right?
Right.
And so it'd be nice to be able to take
Pop it
that
out.
battery, pop it out, put a brand new battery in, and I'm good for another couple of years.
Mm.
Um, so uh, when I when my initial gut reaction to this thing that the EU is doing is that my first gut instinct is the market should dictate this, not not a government entity should dictate this. This is similar to my feelings about electric cars, and I'm not against
Mm.
electric cars at all. So I understand the argument for electric cars. We want to emit less less pollutants, and the environmental impact and whatnot. So I'm not against um, a electric car market. What I have a problem is right now is we have government entities that are forcing the electric car market upon us. And so you and I live in Washington State, and Governor Inslee signed into legislation recently, some legislation that is going to prevent people from buying gas powered cars after 2030, I believe. So if
Mm.
you want to buy a brand new car in 2030 in Washington State, it has to be an electric car. And by the way, you can't go around it and go to Oregon and buy a gas powered car and then have it registered in the state in 2030. You won't be able to register it. And so California is doing something similar, and I believe their target date's 2035.
Mm.
But the problem with the government forcing the market on it, forcing this market is
There's a
first
number of
it
problems.
well well, it artificially inflates this market, right, which is already a bad thing, right? It You want the market to operate organically, not artificially. That's the first thing. The second thing is um, the United States in no way can handle right now the infrastructure
Right.
needed for everyone who has a car right now to have a electric car that you have to charge.
Right.
um, the infrastructure is not there. We're talking about power stations are not adequate. There's not enough of them. On top of that, you have places like California that has rolling blackouts. You look at Texas and their power grid. You know, like the we have power problems now. There are problems right now where people can't get power. Um, and if everybody's going to be charging electric vehicles and electric vehicle batteries, that's going to put an additional massive drain on a infrastructure that just can't handle
Mm.
that. So now, if there was a plan in place to get everything up to snuff where we can convert to electric vehicles, that'd be one thing. But we don't have that. Instead, the government is forcing this market upon us. um, which I think is going to be a problem. And so when I see the same thing, when I see this, the European Union is saying, well, we want people to be able to easily access and remove batteries. I get that. I understand that. I want that too. Um, but I don't think it's their place to force that. I'm always all for voting with money, right? And I think it's more important for companies um, to innovate
Yeah.
and for someone to be brave enough to offer a product that can be flagship level, but offer features that we used to have that we miss. Things like easily removable battery. This is a big reason why I'm a big fan of companies like Framework. Have you heard of them at all?
Hmm. Or not.
So,
Go ahead.
so Framework is a company that builds laptops, but they're
Okay.
modular,
Hmm.
and so you can buy a Framework laptop, uh, and you can configure it how you want with whatever kind of I/O that you want. So if you want four USB Cs on it, you can put four USB C or four Thunderbolt,
Nice.
ports on it. You could have three Thunderbolts and HDMI if you wanted. But more than that, you can change out the screen if you want to. So you can get a full HD 1080p screen today, and 2 years from now, say, you know what, I really want a 4K screen, so you can just buy a 4K screen for it.
Hmm.
The other thing that you can do too is you can buy the latest, i7 processor with a motherboard for it today, and 2 years from now, say, you know what, I kind of want to switch to AMD Ryzen because it does video processing better and I can game on it. So 2 years from now, you can just buy an AMD Ryzen 7 board
It's
for it.
like a desktop laptop.
Kinda, yeah. So, but it gives you that option, and no one else is giving you that, right? So if you could go and you could buy a Dell XPS today, and you're stuck with those specifications for as long as you own that device. But with Framework, you don't have to be stuck with that. You can upgrade it again in 2 years, or 4 years, or 5 years, 3 years, and continue that trend going, which I think is really cool. And that's a company brave enough to go out and do that. But when I see
Hmm.
things like the government stepping in and saying no, sorry, you can't do that, to me it's as pro consumer as replaceable batteries sound. Forcing the market in that direction, I think, is actually anti consumer because it's anti choice and it limits what other manufacturers can do. And so in a lot of ways it might both create and limit innovation.
Hmm. Yeah. To your point, though, I don't know anything about the framework, but
Mm.
uh, I don't know if that makes it the best example or not. The goal would be for your example, that after that innovation happened, this company like Framework would catch on, and that other people it would start to that innovation would spread, and people would choose it, and then it would become more of a norm, right? And
Mm.
again, I don't know the specifics on Framework if that's happening or if it's going to happen or
The hope is that yeah, people will latch on
right,
to Framework and want to do that. Now, the thing is for you and I who like to tinker with things, this is really appealing for people like
right.
us because it's a way to upgrade our stuff without having to buy brand new things every 2 or 3 years. For other people who have no interest in upgrading anything, right? They just they're just in that buyer habit of replacing their laptop every 2 to 4 years. It's not going to mean anything to them.
Yeah.
Um, but the
So
thing but my point here is um, USB C being a standard, right? So the European Union's like USB C is the standard. If you're going to make a smartphone, it has to have USB C. The problem with that mandate is
it
USB C replaced something,
right.
right, that
It's
was
going to
worse
kill the
than it.
innovation, right? And
Right.
I completely agree, and there's a lot of problems with it too. You were talking about the problem with government intervention instead of the consumer, and I'll just
Mm,
butt in here. I mentioned there's a lot of problems with it. Well, one of the problems is what you're about to allude to here, about to so you know, there was there, we've progressed to the USB-C, and we can't imagine something better right now. But I mean, I'm sure some people can, but there is something better, and there will be something better in the future, and it kills innovation, right? And
mm-hmm.
you know, not just that, but I think I'm going to put the tinfoil hat on here. I think what often happens is we get I told you I was going to be like Joe Rogan before the podcast. So
I'm ready for the crazy, man. Go ahead and
so
spill it.
what happens is we get government jumping in, and it looks like they're trying to save us. Oh yeah, government's going to come in and do this and this and this, but follow the money sometimes, and the lobbyists, and oftentimes you see that some of these great ideas for government intervention are ran by a little bit shady mixed interests. And if they can take the control and do something like this, they can kind of move it into their favor. And so obviously, on a direct if we look at the face value, probably not Apple pushing for this. I would imagine, since they're pushing against it. Um, but what happens is, yeah. So I mean, I'm just speculating, and probably not Samsung or whatnot. I wouldn't say these Android companies are pushing for C. I'm not saying that, but you are going to kill the innovation, and you are
Mm-hmm.
and it can be worse than that, because, like, for example, we're talking about what was the other example besides batteries? We're talking about batteries. So
Mm-hmm.
so um, it it may appear great on the surface for now, some of these things, but there could be more nefarious intentions that we don't recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, and you're right. It seems to stop progression at times, um, when you don't have that competition.
I'm certainly feeling that right now, right? Because we can go back 20 years, and if a government entity decided that VGA was the only video out that we could
Yeah,
have, right?
right.
Imagine because 20 years ago, but let's go back maybe 15 years,
Go
where you
back to
had
horses. Everyone has to
go
drive, a certain kind of
every
horse.
right,
You have
yeah,
to,
automobiles are banned. Everyone has to ride horses.
and a
Um,
particular kind of horse, right? It might be the
right,
best horse. This horse might be the horse that's the most environmentally friendly, and it might be the best horse in the bunch. But if we're stuck on that horse and no other things are allowed, I mean,
right, yeah. Right. I'm thinking like 15 years ago, if the government was like, nope, we're done with monitor companies putting VGA and DVI and HDMI on their monitors. We're just gonna have one standard, and it's just gonna be VGA. Like no one's getting HD content anymore.
yeah,
you know. So yeah, it's as soon as you start allowing the government to have this kind of power, you give them an inch and they'll take your
yeah.
house. So and so you would think that based off of our previous podcast that we'd be very probably for
Right.
um, you know, replaceable batteries, and that still is the case. We're definitely for phone companies coming out with phones that have easily replaceable batteries, especially because it's the one thing in every phone that's guaranteed to fail at some point.
Hmm.
We do like that. At the same time, I don't want to hinder a future technology um, because it depends on a solid state battery.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of my take on it. We could keep beating this horse, but um, do you have anything else about that? Any other thoughts?
Well, that's I wish I had some better examples, but I think we about summed it up.
Mm-hmm.
um, it's that we could I think it'd be interesting to investigate some of this further, to like I was saying, see who's involved and getting this done. What I kind of makes me wonder what's really pushing this. Is it really an environmentally friendly kind of thing, or whose hands are involved? Is what I'm interested to see.
Yeah, I don't know. Because certainly I would imagine that Samsung and Apple don't want legislation like this. Um, and on the surface, it certainly looks like it's pro consumer. Um, I just think anytime that you eliminate choice, it becomes anti consumer.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, it's interesting. I wonder who's like, yeah, who's really sponsoring this bill.
right.
um, but maybe it is consumer driven, and right to repair advocates and whatnot that are really pushing this, even though this doesn't really have to do with anything with repair, right? This is I would consider battery replacement maintenance over repair because it's going to fail, right? Just like in a car, um, doing like an oil change or replacing the 12-volt battery in a car is considered maintenance. It's not
Hmm.
a repair. Um, but yeah, it is interesting. Um, I I would be excited to see phone manufacturers uh, bring easily replaceable batteries to the United States because again, this is just in Europe that this is happening.
Hmm.
So
Is this
Samsung app.
one question I have is this something that's going to be for every phone? You know, is that what the law is going to say that all phones have to follow this? Is it going to ban
So
the sales of like how
so
overreaching is this?
according to PC Mag, um, this is pretty generic. Like I said, they quoted portable batteries,
Hmm.
um, which would be used in devices such as smartphones, tablets. If it's in a device that's considered portable,
Yeah.
so I would imagine laptops would be included. Now, a lot of laptops already have removable batteries, though that's becoming less and less the norm.
Yeah.
But smartphones, tablets, cameras, I would imagine that smartwatches would be included in that.
That might be kind of challenging. I don't know the manufacturer challenging them. Maybe not. Maybe it'd be fine.
So, well, certainly it's going to so companies are going to have to be more innovative with their design to be able to meet this new criteria,
Right.
um, which could be a good thing. But again, this could stifle any kind of technology, any future technology that legitimately would require a solid state battery. It would stifle
Hmm.
whatever the innovation is, which
Hmm.
is, I think, a problem.
Hmm.
But I don't see this legislation passing in the United States at all.
Yeah, a little different environment here.
Yeah. So then the question becomes, do manufacturers make two different model of these phones, right? Like a European
Right.
version, right? So this is 2027, right? So is the Galaxy S27 gonna have a European variant that has a removable battery and
They
a
do have the
US
A series
variant?
of phones that's international and that kind of thing. But you
Mm-hmm.
so maybe it's interesting thought.
Yeah. So, yeah, so maybe manufacturers are going to have European variants of devices that have removable phones or removable batteries, or maybe they just make one variant
If,
and
no,
we in the United
no,
States
they
will be the
are they going to
beneficiary.
ban the use of American devices? I mean, how overreaching this is going to be, Or are we going to suddenly
Yeah.
see a surge in our economy? That we're going to Europeans buying American devices? I don't know.
I highly doubt that's the case because as against the government a government making this kind of decision, I'd almost would prefer to buy the European variant because it has a removable battery versus buying the US variant
Well,
that
as you
doesn't.
said, it depends on what kind of.
Yeah.
I don't know if that. I don't think it would add a cost, but I can't foresee all the different variables and how that all the impacts that could have on the device. I don't know, but
Hmm.
I mean, on the face of it, yeah, I would want a replaceable battery too. It sounds great.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's
But
there's got to be
it's
reasons why it's not that way. That would be the interesting. If anyone has a comment to make, should maybe comment. Should we do some investigation? Should our next one be our next podcast be searching into why? Why is it that way? Because you debunked the commonly stated reason that water
water
resistance, right? So
resistant,
what is the
right?
reason if
Yeah.
it's not water resistance? That's an interesting question. We
Oh,
should,
yeah. Well, so well, as far as why have a solid state battery or you know,
yeah.
a
I think that could be
non-removable
a whole
battery.
podcast in itself. To
Well, yeah, I mean, so the water resistance state one I debunked, but I can think of other things, right? So if you have a battery that's non-removable, you know, that means you don't have to have a contraption that holds the battery in place and connects it. And so the connection to the
Hmm.
battery can be much more streamlined and
Unless
straightforward
you're
and
Google,
thinner.
then you just don't know how to do
Well,
it.
so yes, you could also make that point with a lot of other
All
manufacturers that
right.
they just don't
Well,
know how, that they're just not good with batteries, but you can certainly make a device thinner, um, potentially with a solid state battery,
hmm,
um, right? Because you don't have to have, like I said, like a locking mechanisms that's going to hold the battery in place or that connection in place. Um, and the other thing too is um, you know, is it a good idea to be able to use adhesive to glue the battery to the frame of the phone, as opposed to have it just kind of flopping around in there?
hmm,
Um, so I'm sure that there are some legit reasons why manufacturers would want to have a if there wasn't a good reason to have a glued in battery, other than planned obsolescence, right?
right. Exactly. I don't
Which
know
is
if you get someone to
probably,
confess that or not, but
yeah, I don't
it'd
know,
be
maybe.
it might be interesting. It's kind of making me want to go and interview some manufacturers and get to the bottom of it.
Well, it's interesting how like your typical contract with your carrier, right, is 2 years, right? It's a 2 year um now, at least that's what it was, 5 and 10 years ago, right? Is you go to Verizon, you go to T-Mobile, you go to AT&T, you get
Yeah,
your
it's three
smartphone
years with Verizon,
subsidized
so
2 years.
3 years now.
Okay, 3 years.
Hmm.
So, however they want to spin it, it's you're in a 2 or a 3 year agreement with them. Whether that's actually called a contract or T-Mobile, became
Right.
the uncarrier because they don't have contracts. Instead, what they do is they finance a phone for 2 years for you instead. And if you leave before the end of the 2 years, they charge you a full retail cost of the device, which kind of sounds like a 2 year contract to me.
Yeah.
Anyway, but so the carriers have, they get you for 2 to 3 years. That just so happens to be the amount of time needed for your battery to fully, deplete itself of usefulness. And so you're 2 to 3 years
Good point.
into owning your device, right? You
Yep.
and the battery sucks, and now you want to get a brand new device. You can't change the battery, right? So you have to go get yourself a new phone. You now you're at, you're no longer under contract. So you just go, re-up the con. Yeah, there's follow
Convenient
the
truth.
money. Follow the money.
Hmm.
Right? Why do phone manufacturers want glued-in phones in their devices? Well, I think that's probably it right there. Is that they want you to buy a new phone every 2 to 3 years. Yeah, how do we get someone to come on here from Samsung to just admit that, or
Well,
Apple,
I guess it'd be
or
the carriers as well. There, a lot of money going on there.
well, right? Carriers could go to phone manufacturer and be like, hey, look, you scratch our back, we'll scratch your back, and at the end of the
Right.
day,
I mean, I don't know who pushes it the most. It might be all the main phone manufacturers, but I'll tell you that the carriers for sure they're actively, and the having been in phone sales, I no, I'm not in commission, but I'm aware of, and you did commission sales, right? So you would you would have benefited from this at one point. I don't know what the contract. I think they were how it was similar back then. And the contracts might have been different, but the carriers I would say are probably pushing this kind of thing as well. So
so it's interesting because I just said the carriers, but really the carriers aren't making money on the phones. At least they weren't
the
back when I
sales?
was working for them. Yeah.
Well, why would they be? What I mean, if you go into
So
a
so
carrier
so
store, that's all they care about is phone sales. So what do you mean they don't make money on
well
it?
so they don't, well, what they're not making is money off the phone. They're making money off of the contract. They're making money
Oh, right.
monthly off of the plan.
Well, then
And
why would they want
so
to get you into a new phone? Because they want to get you into a new phone. Is it in the new contract, I guess? Okay. Yeah, I
right,
guess that makes
they're
sense.
right. They're looking to keep, yeah. The longer they can keep you, the better. So Verizon can get you to pay them monthly every month for the next 3 years. They'll subsidize a phone for you,
Hmm.
right?
Wouldn't they want
And
you wouldn't they want to get you into a cheaper phone then, though? Because then, you know, I don't know. Just kind of thinking about this.
okay, so I'll get you. So this is you're gonna think probably less of me after I admit this to you.
No, there's no way I
So,
could think less of you.
so the bar's already that low. That's perfect.
Keep going.
So when I worked for a carrier, and technically it wasn't the carrier themselves, it was an authorized retailer for a specific
Right.
carrier. Um, our commission was based off of the plan. So it was all based off of gross profit. Um, and if you want to enhance the gross profit of your sale, the first thing that you want to do is get a customer into a smartphone, because if they're into a smartphone, you have to add data to their plan. So this is going to kind of date me back, a
A little bit.
decade, technically longer than a decade, where people were still kind of making the switch from flip phones to smartphones. If you had a flip phone at the time, you didn't have
Data.
data on your plan. You had
Minutes.
you had minutes and you had text, and usually you'd have a limit on your minutes and then unlimited text messaging.
Oh man, I see some gray hairs just appearing as you
Yeah,
talk about this.
yeah. So, and so if you got someone to switch over to a smartphone, now you're adding a data package at a minimum of $30 per line. And if you wanted to really maximize your gross profit, you would want to sell the least subsidized phone that you had. And
Hmm.
so, for an example, if I sold an iPhone, um, I sold an iPhone uh, at base MSRP, which is what that carrier got that phone at.
Huh.
So, selling an iPhone would not increase my gross profit at all, because I'm basically selling it at cost. If I sold a case for that phone, that would increase the gross profit of that sale, but the iPhone itself would not. Um, if I sold a Samsung Gem, for anyone who remembers what a Samsung Gem was, it was this tiny little piece of crap smartphone. Um, the the gross profit would be way higher on that device, because um, the company would get, like, the subsidy would be um, something like $300, but you're selling the phone for like $150 or $100, and so you're making an extra $200 of profit on that phone, and so your commission would just skyrocket
Hmm.
if you were selling people the cheaper piece of crap smartphones versus
Wow.
the iPhone. And so our plan was, is whenever somebody came in, and they came in asking for an iPhone, but that was the last phone that we'd want to sell anybody because we didn't make any money off of it. So instead, we'd be attaching. We would try to get people who are thinking about getting into smartphones. We would pivot this Samsung Gem phone as like the introduction
Wow.
smartphone. It was an Android phone. You get all the benefits of an
Yeah.
Android phone, and by the way, you don't have to pay $300 for it. I'll sell it to you for $50 or $100,
Huh.
and you're getting all the same features as a at the time, as a regular like Android device.
I've got all sorts of questions, but we're on 36 minutes, and
Okay.
I that's gonna. Oh
Well,
man, we'll have to come
stay
back to
tuned
this.
for part two.
Right. Jeez. Yeah.
Well, for anyone who has stayed on this long, thank you for staying on this long, and
Yeah.
we'll
And
catch you next.
if there's
Go ahead.
we've got all sorts of part two ideas to this one. If you have one that you want to comment on, feel free to comment and see. We would love to explore something you guys are interested in. So,
Yeah, and I'm well beyond any kind of NDA agreement or anything like that on that company. So if anybody wants dirty little secrets,
yeah.
feel free to ask. I don't mind spilling at this point. So, yeah.
All
Anyway, we will catch you next time, and insert catchphrase.